Oops. Welcome back. We will continue at a bit of a breakneck speed, and that's why we begin presentations of our second group of experts, starting with Professor Oyewale Tomori, former president of Nigerian Academy of Science, and currently the education administrator and vice chancellor of the Redeemer University in Nigeria. Professor Tomori was engaged in research on viral infections, including the Ebola hemorrhagic fever, yellow fever, and Lassa fever. Today he will be talking to us about the African response to COVID-19. Welcome, Professor Tomori.
I should leave it like that?
Well, welcome. Yep, we can hear you. We're very glad to have you on board, so please take the floor.
Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
Pretty great, apart from some technical issues.
Sorry?
We're doing fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, please begin then.
Okay. How many minutes do I have? Is it only 6 minutes?
Yep, we have 6 minutes provided per speaker.
Uh-oh, okay. I'll have to jump quite quickly then. That's okay. I wasn't too sure how many minutes, but so.
We'll try our best to accommodate you.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of squeeze. There's some, I have like 2-3 slides. I just jump over one and just go quickly. I'm sure we can get. Are you the moderator?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Are you the moderator?
Yes. I'm the host of this online conference, but more importantly, you are our guest and it's your floor.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So please, anytime you're ready, just begin.
The line is cutting a bit. Couldn't hear you well. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, good. That's good.
So please, Professor, because we're live, so if you would please begin your presentation.
I can start now?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm going to be talking about COVID-19 response in Africa. And as you can see, Africa has been used to having emerging and re-emerging epidemics over the years. In the last 2017 up to now, every week we have one epidemic or the other in large numbers. And apart from the 3 major issues that we have in Africa, yellow fever, Lassa fever, and then of course Ebola came some days last year, 2014 to 2016, and now it's still ongoing in the DR Congo. And you can see that's the map showing what part of the world we have Ebola. Now, when Ebola came in 2014, obviously Africa was not prepared. And so the epidemic raged on, and quite a lot of people died, over 20,000 cases, and 11,000 people dying. So these are some of these comments. So I'm going to quickly look at the COVID-19, how prepared were we for before the epidemic arrived in Africa. Only South Africa had about some critical care beds in terms of, where they can take care of critical cases. The number of Malawi, for example, had like less than a bed to 100,000 people. In Central African Republic, only 3 ventilators were available. And then, of course, the situation in Africa, high rate of malnutrition, co-infection with HIV, malaria, and other diseases. And then there's competition against wealthy countries to get the limited supplies of whatever it is that we require, swabs, reagents, test cartridges, and things of that nature. So while many African countries had PCR laboratories to test, the only very few of them had the kits to test those things. And so point of care was not even available at that time. This map quickly shows, if you look at the when the epidemic started, you can see Africa was blank. There were no red spots. And the following day, when the WHO declared the thing public health emergency of international concern, Africa still no one case until a day later when Egypt had one. And then subsequently, you can see as the cases of many other countries began to join as travelers arrive in Africa, bringing in the epidemic. By now, this is just a map showing what the situation was at a particular time in March. But right now, Africa, virtually every country in Africa has disease. This is something to show you the cumulative number of cases and deaths in Africa. I will quickly, if you don't mind, just switch off my video. I'm having a bit of difficulties seeing some of the things. Anyway, so, okay. So these are the cumulative number of cases that we have in Africa as of 29th of September, which was yesterday. The African region is divided into two. There's the WHO African region. There's the EMRO, which includes countries like Tanzania, Tunisia, Djibouti, and others. But the whole of Africa, we have 1.47 cases as of yesterday, of which 36,000 have died. But in the African region, which is sub-Saharan Africa, these are the numbers and the separation that you see with the visit. That's an epidemic curve of the African region, which is showing you, again, the number of cases. You can see a trend. I mean, we probably reached our peak about July, and then things are gradually coming down. However, we are a bit cautious about this drop in cases because we do know that many countries are no longer testing as they were testing in July. And therefore, we don't know whether this is a reflection of the drop in testing as distinct from whether we're actually having drops. We put this map in a different way on a weekly basis. You can see the same pattern. Same about the week of sometime week 29 epidemiologically, we had a peak in Africa and things started going down at that period. You will see, again, just within the last few days, over the past 48 hours, we have about 6,000 cases reported in Africa. So when we say cases are dropping in Africa, we're actually not saying in the entire, there are countries where the cases are actually rising, and in some cases they are dropping. You get large number of, South Africa provides quite a large chunk of cases in Africa. And of course, when they drop, then it means that the entire African period drops. But then you will have other countries like Ethiopia, like Kenya, like Mozambique, who are also having cases coming up. So in the case, when we say there are drops in Africa, it is not uniform. There are still a few other countries. I put here the 10 countries in Africa in which we've had the kind of last few days to see between the last week, 22 to 28 September, how many cases we have, what number of deaths, and what are the percent of cases. You can see South Africa top the list. So Ethiopia is coming up right now with Mozambique, Algeria, and Kenya. So these are the top 10 countries in Africa. Some of them are having drops, but not all of them. I put that map here to show the status of transmission classification in Africa. Almost 88%, 93% of the cases in Africa, actually, we are in the community transmission stage. We do have a few cases where I have cluster of cases. But as you see in that map, all the world looks like red is the entire African region, maybe just 1 or 2 countries where you're having cluster of circulation. I put another here to show you a more better geographical distribution in terms of size. You can see the greatest problems are coming from Nigeria, South Africa, and parts of Ethiopia, as you can see here. A few other countries are also giving some problems where we're having a large number of cases. Looking at deaths within the African region, the emphasis is more. We can see, again, the island countries are where we're having a large, the darker the color, of course, the more severe the case fatality rate. We have look at the trend over in the of COVID cases in the last 4 weeks. You can see again that trend of reaching a peak and dropping. And among the countries, the top 10 countries, you can see that South Africa accounts for almost 83% of all the cases in Africa. If you look at your right, you see the trend is uniform. A few countries, these are the countries that are showing trend in the pattern of cases that they're having. I'm looking at what about in terms of tests per capita that we're doing. Not many countries are doing very well. You can see, and we're testing differently. So the testing strategy varies from one country to another. Some are using all suspected cases. Some are using only those who are suspected, or departing travelers or arriving travelers. Some are doing just community survey, and so many other things are doing. Some people are looking at deaths and checking those community deaths, or tracking drivers in countries where you have this situation. So testing strategy varies in different African countries. So it's difficult to compare that, okay, this is the standard for this. Again, look at in terms of positive rate, we're having the same situation from the different parts of Africa coming up in different ways. Because we are using different strategies for testing, it is difficult to compare whether our positive rates are going. I've done just a quick look at different countries that are having Niger Republic, Benin Republic, Nigeria with a large number. But in every case, you see, apart from Burundi, where cases are also coming up, and South Tome, in many of the other African countries, the cases are actually dropping. Again, we're showing it in different parts of Africa. Evidence apart virtually everybody except for Botswana, we're having a rise in the number of cases. The rest of Africa, there's a peak coming up. Lesotho, it was going down before, now it's coming down. So Kenya is going down, but we're having a little peak in a few distance. So overall, the downward trend we are seeing in African region appears to continue. However, it must be taken with the proper analysis of whether we are actually, what is the strategy, testing strategy, what group of people, what population we are testing. And so this, again, our drop in Africa should be interpreted with caution because of the number of tests we are doing. And in some countries, like I mentioned, like Cape Verde, Botswana, the cases are actually rising rather than dropping. And the death trend is also maybe decreasing, but we also have a situation in many countries. In spite of what we're saying, South Africa is still reporting the largest number of cases in Africa, although because they are dropping, that really affects the situation in Africa. At the sub-regional level, we are seeing, because of the travels between the Southern African countries, so South Africa is surrounded by so many countries. In East Africa, there's a lot of travel between the people there, and therefore this is causing quite a bit of a problem. Now, the strategy to ensure that people do not take this drop in number as the end of COVID is important for us to quickly make sure. So we need to manage our cases very well and then continue with the strategy. So let me, in concluding, each African country received about 20,000 test kits through the Jakima Foundation. The African CDC has actually been working extensively with partnership to ensure that we have kits in the African region. Initially, most of our action was unplanned. We locked down because everybody was locking down. And then it disrupted even our health services. Non-pharmaceutical interference like wearing of masks and things like that did not become popular with the people because they didn't understand and appreciate what the government was doing. But I think the African CDC has come to the rescue in Africa. Now, I'm concluding by saying, after the Ebola epidemic, I actually put up an editorial. Will Africa's future epidemic ride on forgotten lessons of the Ebola epidemic? This is an opportunity for us now to use that to reflect on improving healthcare services and health infrastructures in Africa, to prepare and respond with adequate funding, accountability, and transparency, plus ensuring that we get our community involved in a one-way health approach to come into the end of COVID. That I say, yes, did I get it well?
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
And it's us who should thank you, Professor, for this very, very illuminating presentation. However, next up we should be connecting with Hana Zelena, head of the Department of Microbiology and National Reference Laboratory of the Institute of Health in Ostrava, Czech Republic. She will be speaking about the... Oh no, actually we've managed to connect with Professor Al-Kafraoui, who we've meant to talk with during our first group. We were a little late, so we've managed to slot him in right now. Welcome, Professor Kafraoui. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you. We can see you just fine, but the sound is off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it works now.
Voice now?
Yep, we can hear you now, and we're glad to have you on board.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation for this conference. I'd like to start my presentation about COVID-19 or SARS-2 vaccines. Generally speaking, vaccines and control of infectious disease, an infectious disease can be controlled if there is an effective chemotherapeutic agent or agents, and if there is an effective and safe vaccine. A useful vaccine is preferred if it is effective in protecting people against disease, it is cost effective, can protect against all strains of the infectious agent, and protection continues over a reasonable period of time after vaccination, like several years. A vaccine is a preparation that may contain the whole organism or part or parts of it. It should be able to stimulate our immune system to react to it. The immune system will produce a protective response, through the immune cells and or through the antibodies. The protection induced should persist for some time, after which we need to boost the immune system. Pathogens grow only on a suitable system, like tissue culture in case of viruses. The culture contains proteins from the tissue culture media and from the cells themselves. These materials have nothing to do with the pathogen. The vaccine may be adjuvated, meaning it contains an additive to promote the response of the immune system without compromising tolerability or safety. The vaccine may contain preservatives to prolong its shelf life, like thimerosal. Sometimes the immune system reacts to proteins that contaminate the vaccine preparation during its manufacturing, like a hypersensitivity reaction, or preservatives can sometimes be harmful on the long run. Some other small drawbacks are that people do not like needle pricks, and preparation can cause pain at the site of injection, and some vaccines produce mild fever and or general symptoms. Our knowledge about the SARS-2 immune response, it was discovered only a few months ago. Therefore, we cannot tell for how long can these protective antibodies continue to protect those who recovered from infection. Although there is a response to SARS-2 infection, the role of the immune system cells, the T cells and the NK cells, is not clear so far. There is a protective antibody in people who recovered a natural infection. Patients who recover severe infection have IgA antibodies that persisted for up to 50 days, and IgG antibodies that persisted at a high level for 40 to 120 days after the onset of symptoms. I have to report here that the disease was discovered only a few months ago. That's why we cannot have full information about how long the antibodies can persist. A recent study, which was in September 10, reported rapid decay of anti-SARS-CoV-2 antibodies in patients who recovered mild infection. I just am noting this because this would be a drawback in itself. A recent study in the USA discussed the role of immune system cells. The study showed that both B cells and T cells were involved in protection against SARS-2 virus. Authors demonstrated that the immune response was very much similar to other virus infections. They suggested that vaccines can boost the people's immune status regardless of any previous infection. About the vaccine, public health experts are hoping one or several vaccines for COVID-19 will be ready by 2021. Close to 200 vaccines for the disease are under study, and several candidates have moved to phase 3 human studies. That's the final step to prove if the vaccine is safe and effective before it can get FDA approval. To help speed up development and fund trials, the US has set up Operation Warp Speed, a partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, and other federal agencies. Its goal is to deliver 300 million doses of safe, effective vaccine by January 2021. Companies which are involved in this project are AstraZeneca, Janssen, also known as Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Novavax, Pfizer, and Sanofi SGK. All vaccine candidates are claimed to give a robust immune response, antibody, and cellular in clinical trials. Just an information about the candidate vaccines. Inactivated form of the virus is produced by, is tested by Sinopharm, Sinovac Biotech, messenger RNA producing COVID-19 spike protein by Moderna, nucleoside modified RNA, uridine-containing RNA, self-amplifying RNA, combined with a lipid nanoparticle. These are BioNTech, Pfizer, and Fosun, and Pharma. The vaccines under evaluation contain either the major spike proteins or the receptor binding domain. The plasmid PGX-9501 that encodes for the full-length SARS-2 spike glycoprotein is studied by Inovio. COVID-19 vaccine AZD1222 is a chimpanzee adenovirus in which the COVID-19 is inserted. That's why it has the code CHADOX1 nCoV-19. It is produced by AstraZeneca. In clinical trial, one case developed neurological manifestations suspected by some to be transverse myelitis, though information is not adequate. The trials were suspended for a short while, then resumed. The NIH is very concerned about the serious side effect in AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine trial until proven otherwise. Johnson & Johnson produced a recombinant replication incompetent adenovirus 26. In Russia, Sputnik 5 uses 2 adenovirus vectors, RAD26, meaning recombinant replication defective, and RAD5. In China, the adenovirus 5 nCoV vaccine candidate is a genetically engineered vaccine candidate with RAD5 as the vector to express SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. Novavax is testing a proprietary recombinant protein nanoparticle technology platform to generate antigen derived from coronavirus spike S protein and adding a proprietary matrix M adjuvant with its COVID-19 vaccine candidate to enhance immune responses. Sanofi SGK are testing an adjuvated recombinant protein-based vaccine. Recently, China announced that they are also conducting clinical trials on a COVID-19 nasal spray vaccine. The vaccine consists of influenza viruses, including H1N1, H3N2, and influenza virus B. A segment coding for the SARS-2 spike glycoproteins is inserted in this live attenuated influenza vaccine. The vaccine can produce double protection against influenza and COVID-19. Looks very exciting. When I talk about cons, I should say things that worry physicians and the general public. Apart from the contaminating agents that I mentioned before, and the preservatives that might have some effect on the long run, there are some questions to be discussed. Some vaccines are genetically engineered, and some vaccines are messenger RNA used as a vaccine to synthesize SARS-CoV-2 antigens. These two topics are generally included in what's known as genetically manipulated preparations, which is always something worrying because little study is done on these things and people might feel like it can affect the vaccinee on the long run. Adenoviruses and influenza viruses are circulating around in nature. This means that one might be immune to this particular adenovirus or influenza virus. This will prevent the virus from replication when introduced in the body and will not allow the body to develop immunity. Another thing is that we don't know how long will the vaccine period efficient immunity. I mean, how long will the vaccine provide efficient immunity? With the studies about the natural infection, which are giving controversial data, some of them saying that the antibody persisted for some 120 days, and others say that only faded very rapidly. One cannot tell which outcome will get with the vaccine. Another question is, will people need boosters and when? Also, another question is, can the same vaccine be used again and again for boosting? Suppose I received X vaccine, then after some time I need to be boosted. Will the same preparation be good enough for boosting, or should I use another preparation prepared in a different way? Finally, what would be the effects of the vaccine on people on the long run? Like what happened with the merthiolate, which I referred to before, that some people had some adverse effects after many years from receiving vaccines containing merthiolate. Would that be the case with these new vaccines or not? Because everything is new about this new virus. Well, this is the logo of the time since COVID virus was discovered, the facial face mask. So I figured that I would add it to my thank you final slide.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. And if you wouldn't mind, if we kept you for a second more to ask you a few questions, given your expertise in this particular topic of COVID-19 vaccines. Assuming one day, hopefully sooner than later, we do manage to create a somewhat successful vaccine, do you think it will be necessary to enforce mandatory mass vaccination against COVID to control this pandemic? Or will we be able to treat it like, honestly, most of our vaccines, where they are left to individual choice?
Well, this is a very good question. I would say here that whatever is announced about the total death toll of COVID-19 is approaching 1 million persons all over the world. This is not as many as the death toll of, for example, influenza pandemic, which happened before. That's why I should say, why should I force the whole population to get vaccinated when I did not force the people to receive the influenza vaccine before, like, for example? I think it should be enforced perhaps for people at high risk, like medical staff and paramedical staff who are exposed to infection actually. But for the normal people, the incidence of the disease is not very high, and the mortality is also not so much alarming.
Thank you, Professor. And another question, I might be really wrong about it, but one of the ideas that has been brought up in terms of developing a cure for COVID, that for my definitely unscientific brain sounds somewhat similar to vaccination, is creating a cure based on the blood plasma of people who've already been infected with the virus and recovered. Are you aware of any such developments actually being researched or reaching some hopefully promising milestones?
Well, excuse me, I could not get the last part.
Yes, are you aware of any actual development of such kind of medicine from blood plasma of previously infected and recovered people somewhere in the world that would be making progress as we speak?
You want to know about people who recovered from COVID-19?
About creation of medicine based on the blood plasma of people who have recovered.
Okay, from the plasma of the people who recovered.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
As I said before, after actual infection, people develop protective antibody. And if you can standardize the amount of antibody in the preparation, then it can be used by testing different amounts of these units. And we can tell that this can be useful. This amount is enough to confer protection, like people at early stages of infection, perhaps.
Great. And perhaps to better frame the entire topic of developing vaccination of COVID, because it is, as far as I understand, a difficult matter because the virus is so different. In the simplest terms, what is it about COVID that makes it so the existing antiviral solutions just don't want to work? And why do we really have to try and develop something really new?
About virus drugs, you mean?
Yeah, in case of this particular virus.
Well, as far as I know, that the data about available coronavirus drugs is controversial, with some people claiming they are effective, some people claiming they are equivocal. I mean, they did not give any better result than people who did not receive it. So until a well-designed drug is developed, I think that we will not have, we do not have a good medicine for that infection.
Right. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
Speaking, one last question, and we'll probably let you off the hook. Because when it comes to preventing the infection, which is always preferable to treating an already sick patient, apart of obviously working on a vaccination, do you think there is merit in trying to strengthen the immune systems of people in, let's say, more conventional ways through other substances or medicines? Like, for example, when we were talking about the more casual, normal flus that people tend to get every autumn, it usually pays to be like a little more immune, to lesser the chance of getting the normal flu. In case of COVID, would it be another best practice to try and strengthen one's immune system, or is it this disease just like too serious, too powerful to bother that way?
Do I understand that you want to talk about protective measures for the people other than drugs?
Yes, in terms of protecting measures, what we have obviously is, for example, masks or cleaning hands, whose goal is avoiding the contaminants, avoiding the droplets which could spread. However, when we're dealing with ordinary flu, the kind we get every year, apart from such measures, we all should be always washing hands, not only during the pandemic. It usually pays off to try to strengthen one's immunity system, like eat better, maybe take some vitamins, and so on. And in case of COVID, would it be a good practice to try for, on a very ordinary level, for every person to try and strengthen their immune system, or is this disease just too serious, too powerful for that to matter?
Well, from the data given by so far, it looks like most of the people recover without presenting to the hospitals even. I mean, when they tested people for antibody, they found that there are many people who are apparently healthy, did not complain, and they are having antibody. So if this is the major condition, then I would say that just the regular protective measures for respiratory infections, like a mask or a face shield, would be convenient. But we have also to notice that the COVID can be transmitted through food. I mean, sharing food with an infected person can lead to infection. Like when people are gathering and sharing one common food, they can get infected through the food as well. General measures like washing hands, having a face mask or a face shield as well are enough to protect. I think many countries are going through this direction, and they have very small amount or very little amount of reported cases.
Thank you, Professor. And
you're welcome.
Well, I'm sorry, we've got one more question. Apparently, there's a lot of interest in your work. This is back to the antibodies for COVID, because one question that arises in terms of preventing COVID with antibodies is, it was observed that in some cases, people who have recovered from COVID could in fact fall sick again, get reinfected. Could you tell more about work being done to separate, to discover what's the difference between those who gain immunity and those who only seem to get immunity, but it turns out it doesn't really work?
Well, I think that you are asking about people who got infected and they might be infected again?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. There is a report that there was an isolation of the virus from people who were previously infected. But actually, we cannot tell if this was a residual virus remaining after recovery or if it's actually a new infection. That's why this has to be confirmed first. Because theoretically speaking, if I got infected and I recovered and I have a complete immune system that made me recover, then I should not be reinfected in a short while, at least. Even with the common colds, we do not get infected so frequently without vaccination, without anything. So I suppose that this topic is has to be studied further, whether they are actually reinfected or it's just a residual virus from the first infection.
Right. And talking about your personal opinion here, what would you think would be preferable in terms of developing the COVID vaccine? To get it out as fast as possible once it seems to be working, or really take one's time to get 1% sure it really works, it's not a false alarm? Which of those two options, getting it too early or getting it too slow, do you think would be possibly more dangerous in the long term?
Well, I think that the people who should receive the vaccine as early as possible are people at high risk, like people in areas with high incidence of infection and the medical staff. Those are people that are likely to be infected more than others. For the rest of the community, depending on the nature of the disease in the country, if the country is having a small number of cases reported, then I would prefer that I should not rush for mass vaccination. Because if without vaccine they are looking fine, we don't have to rush anything then.
Right, so it would be preferable to roll it out in 2 waves, basically. Once for the frontline personnel, but still keep working on the vaccine until we're really sure, because before we can tell the population, okay, you can get vaccinated, it'll be fine.
Excuse me?
So what you're saying is it would be optimal to roll out a possible vaccine in 2 waves. To the medical personnel on the front lines as fast as possible, and then wait before we can reassure the general public, okay, we've got this covered.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Because a vaccine will cost a lot of money as well. So I think that we should not rush very much with the vaccine before, at least it should prove effective, even on a larger scale.
Great. Many thanks for your answers, Professor, and I'm hoping you'll enjoy the rest of our conference.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Have a nice day.
And now let's connect to our next speaker. And it'll be John Kofi Odoom, the research fellow at Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research in Ghana, and also the technical director for World Health Organization's National Polio Reference Laboratory in Ghana. Welcome, Professor Odoom.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please take the stage.
Thank you. My presentation is on data management during COVID-19 outbreak response in Ghana, and looking at the laboratory perspective, key issues and measures. Our laboratory is at the Nitsche Memorial Institute for Medical Research, which is in Accra, capital of the country. COVID-19, which is now an important subject for global health. During this pandemic, Ghana also experienced low to moderate transmission of the disease. The first 2 cases were detected in March, 12th of March. And then the disease peaked somewhere around May to June. By August 24th, the country has registered or confirmed 24,000 cases. Sorry, confirmed 43,622 cases with 263 deaths. Data is very crucial, as we all know, and it's a building block for effective response outcomes during outbreaks. This involves the way the records are organized, stored and retrieved for pre-testing, process testing, as well as post-testing. It also involves laboratory methods and policies which guides the operator and the supervisor on the use of tools system. During the outbreak, the first few cases were detected as a result of mandatory quarantine of travelers coming to the country. This was followed by passive case finding at the hospitals, clinics, those that work in voluntary for testing. And then later, there was what we call enhanced contact tracing and then passive surveillance. For all these cases, a standard case investigation form was used to collect clinical information. This includes biodata of the patients, the hotels they were staying, their travel history, signs and symptoms, and date of onset. And nasopharyngeal and or oropharyngeal swabs or sputum samples were collected from these patients into a transport medium, which was packaged and then sent using the cold chain to Nitsche Memorial Institute for Medical Research. In the laboratory, samples were received and documented initially in books, and then it was followed by RNA extraction, then PCR, and the results were analyzed. And during the enhanced contact tracing, samples started coming in thousands. A day we could receive 3,000 to 5,000 samples a day, then processed, and all these samples were coming with case identification forms. You can just imagine, we have a lot of case identification forms. You need to enter all these details. Then for the PCR that we're doing, we're also recording results in books. Realize that it has become a massive so that we no longer could use the books. It was delaying the time in which we were reporting results to the program. We have a lot of case investigation forms. We have 200,000. We have a lot of books. So there was a need to overcome this challenge. It's not just that, but even some of the case investigation forms that we received were without sex, without date of onset, without symptoms, etc. A whole lot of issues. Some of the samples also arrived without case investigation forms. We also received case investigation forms without samples. At a point, some of the samples was even difficult to process because we did not have enough information in order to bring them to the person the sample was coming from. So these were bottlenecks, great major challenges And even for the data, because we were writing, spelling mistakes, duplication of ovation, incorrect flows, etc., were all challenges that had to be overcome. So eventually, we have to switch from the recordings in the book to a database system. So we started using the SMpaul. So samples that were received, information were entered into the SMpaul database direct. And then again, the PCR results also were using the database. We were able to use a software that will allow us now to transmit information from the PCR room straight to the data room without having to copy and then go and type the same thing, which was giving us errors. So those in the database now can access information directly from the PCR room, and then they're able to update their data. This make the work a bit easier for us. Yet we were still using the paper because we need to enter the information. We realized that we need to bring in more hands for the data entry. So all the secretaries, the institute were brought on board. They all started entering into the SL database. And again, we tried the use of the research electronic data capture, which is also known as REDCap. This allows all the information on the case investigation form to be captured, unlike the SL, because we need to report to the program. We just have to select some vital information to report. And this particular software allowed us to enter every information. And it is also good said that district directors from the various districts who access that information wherever they are. So it became very helpful to us. But even all this would not solve the problem until we get to a point where it liaise with the Ministry of Information. They were able to come up with another software that we call SOMAS, which is Surveillance Outbreak Response Management Analysis System. This works with barcodes. So what they did was to enter the information in the field before the sample will come to the lab. So the sample will now arrive with a line list. All we need to do in the lab is to scan the barcode, and then we get access to all the information concerning the person. And by so doing, we now eliminated the paperwork entirely, making the work a bit easier for us. So the paperwork or the books that we have to enter information in is able to overcome all this. So the summaries and the barcodes, now the work became slightly easier for us. And so in conclusion, we are saying that for proper laboratory data management, for SARS, for that matter, any other disease during outbreak, it's very important to have a very good system, because the result that is generated from the lab is what is sent for decision making. Also, looking at what happened, realize that during the early stages of the outbreak, the data management was very poor. Eventually, when we were able to put in proper measures, this we were able to overcome. So we recommend that for proper and adequate, we need proper and adequate training for the field staff during disease outbreak. This is very important to allow them to use the proper tools to collect the appropriate information that is needed. Secondly, surveillance officers should also be closely supervised. They should closely supervise the sample collectors as well as the data collectors, so that they ensure that we get the proper information in the laboratory. And next, we also need the data staff in the lab to receive the proper training, then the proper data management tools that are needed for the laboratory work. Finally, also the laboratory should be equipped with data dissemination tools to ensure timely and accurate reporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for the quite interesting presentation. And And in a few minutes, we will be connecting to our next guest. I believe the connection is still being made, but this time it shouldn't take too long. I believe on a technical level, it is sailing quite smoothly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Hi.
Sorry, I do not have the vision of our next guest. Okay.
Huh? I'm Milind Gore. I'm Milind Gore.
Oh yes. Sorry, our issue was resolved. Welcome. Let's welcome Professor Milind Gore, professor at the National Institute of Virology in Pune, India, and the coordinator of the Indian sector of the World
There is a
Society.
voice problem from your side.
No, it's working fine. So I'll just step out of your way. Please get on with your presentation.
Okay, so okay. I mean, you tell me start. I will start. I mean,
Yes,
that's what.
please go ahead right now, whenever you're ready.
I can start now.
Yep.
Okay. So should I start because you are recording anyhow?
Yes, please go on. We're live and you can start.
Okay. So well, hi. I'm Milind Gore. Beginningly, while reading about COVID, so one of the things with other corona and other things.
I'm sorry, Professor. Could you stand closer to the microphone? We've been hearing you well, and now you got really quiet.
Is it quiet?
Oh yeah.
Is it okay now?
Now it's good again. Thank you.
Now it is okay?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay. So, okay, I do not work on COVID. And while reading with the COVID and other, I was surprised that
I'm sorry, Professor. Could you lean in? Because when you were asking us, we were able to hear perfectly well, but when you started reading, it's really quiet again. So if you could like keep really close to the microphone, because
so I mean I have to have this kind of face.
Yeah, when you're in this position, we can hear you perfectly.
So I mean having, because I'm reading also partly.
Yes, of course. Just if you could stay this close to microphone as you are right now.
So microphone, anyhow, I do not whatever it is, wherever it is. You are I mean every voice is coming okay?
Yeah, right now it's coming okay.
Right now, no. So I will continue with that. So should I start from the beginning again?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay. So while reading the and COVID and things, I was surprised. I was surprised
Professor?
Yes.
Could you please try speaking a little louder again?
Again, loud. I mean, I'm actually shouting now.
Oh yeah.
So, in a only E protein based vaccine, it might work although these
Professor, I think the issue we're having sometimes might be maybe less of a loudness and more about facing the microphone. We think it might have a very tight range in which it picks you up.
I mean the microphone is here only, no? I mean where the else is the microphone?
But when you're facing this way, when you're
so if I turn my head,
requests, we can hear you much
so
better.
I have to focus on the
exactly. Then it picks you up much better.
So I have to hold the paper like that. That is a difficulty for me. So because I have to turn my head. So how to do it? Kind of thing. So what should be done now? You have to tell me. Hello.
Yes. Please just continue facing me while you read.
Which portion you want me to repeat again? Or
last 2 points, and then you can go further.
From the beginning?
No, just the last 2 points, and then please continue.
I mean, how many slides?
Within this slide, just a tiny bit.
Only the last slide is not good.
Exactly.
Okay, so that I can, because of my thought, I can do it. So I will give you the thought to develop a successful vaccine to control the pandemic. It will be
Also, Professor, I'm really sorry, but because of these repeats we are starting to run out of time. So if you could please go closer to the summary.
So this is my summary. Anyhow, this is summary. So you use non-political can use instead of CMV, the cDNA, we can use APC.
Oh, I'm afraid we might have lost the connection, but fear not, we are about to go on with our next guest, Professor Arman Badalyan, an epidemiologist at the Yerevan State Medical University, and it will be a very interesting presentation actually about the misinformation tactics plaguing the response to COVID-19 itself and the possible vaccination program. Professor Badalyan, hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you very much and good afternoon and welcome to International Online Conference. Surely it's hard and difficult time in Armenia, but I know we will overcome with honor as usual. Thank you. Some aspects of infodemic approach. The name, title of my presentation. And I want to start the presentation with words from famous poem in praise of polio, Erasmus Rotter from Rotterdam. So either there is no difference between wise men and fools, or the position of fools is far more advantageous. Firstly, their happiness based on deception or self-deception gets them much cheaper. And secondly, they can share their happiness with most other people. There are several definitions regarding infodemic. The most popular one is overabundance of information and the rapid spread of misleading or fabricated news, images, and videos. And I want to make a little parallels because misinformation can be related to different topics, but the leading role belongs to the anti-vaxxer movement. And we know these anti-vaxxers, their movement starts many years ago, more than 200 years, when Edward Jenner elaborated the vaccine against smallpox. And starting from this period of time up to now, we deal with, unfortunately, there is a real challenge regarding misinformation, especially regarding vaccinations. Just my personal subjective, maybe, or objective, I think, opinion, there are some main prerequisites. The main prerequisites, the following. Population usually continues to evade implementation of preventive measures. And we know vaccination itself is one of the major preventive measures. And mostly the core of this mostly stands on the mentality and on the will of population. It doesn't matter. It can be vaccination, or try to quit smoking, or to do the physical exercises, or to keep special diet, or any components of lifestyle. Usually people try to escape such activities because it takes a will mostly. Why to be vaccinated, for example, suffer 1 or 2, 3 days, then in order to prevent further possible catching of these or another diseases. If everything is now okay, why we have to do it? It requires the will. It requires special mentality, and anti-vaxxers usually play on this approach. And in my opinion, the winning formula is following. First of all, it's spread of misinformation. Just for example, based on simple Dunning-Kruger effect, psychological, no responsibilities. It's very easy to speak about any rumors and spread these rumors if you haven't any responsibilities. It's a famous psychological Dunning-Kruger effect. Plus, impassionate and vigorous reaction, vice versa, pro-vaccinators. And population, what they desire, they listen. And again, it is related to the previous topic. When there is either will, there is the spatial mentality. If there is an absence of that or a lack of that, it means they desire what they want to listen, and they listen these rumors. And doubt and hesitation has formated, which usually leads to the vaccine hesitancy and other problems. Even for current situation updates, there are several reports. One of them, we have pro-vaccination camp, 6.9 million people, anti-vaccination camp, 4.2 million people, maybe comparatively less, but we have another target group, main target group of for people who spread this misinformation. It is undecided group, and we can observe how much time they are more, 74.5 million people. This is the main target group, and usually when they spread this misinformation, unfortunately, this target undecided group absorb this information and make vaccine hesitancy. Or according to the other report, anti-vaccination camp, 31 million people in Facebook and YouTube, around 17 million people. And according to this report, they testify there is an increase by 77.5 million people in social media starting from 2019. If we make some parallels, or we can rephrase, because the most hated one by anti-vaxxers, it is vaccines against human papillomavirus, and we can make some parallels because we know now there is a huge effort for elaboration of COVID-19 vaccine, and now the misinformation starts regarding COVID. There are a lot of doubts, there are a lot of misinformation, surely according to the different points of the vaccine, and we make a parallels almost the same. Instead of HPV, we can make insert the COVID vaccine, and other aspects also will be kept, unfortunately. For example, concerns about safety of vaccine among teenagers, the same I assure you will have regarding adults, regarding children, or vaccine causing infertility or other problems, autoimmune problems, for example, one of the most favorite one regarding COVID-19, vaccine enhancement problems, or age distribution, clinical trials. Vaccines very new, the favorite topic that they like to do always, especially here when we stress always the average time for 3, 4, 5 years, now around 1 year. Surely this misinformation will be more distributed in future. Mistrust to the government, health authorities, or immunization program surely can be. And all these topics, it's not alone, each of them. There are combination, more or less in different countries. But I assure you a lot of all of them are exist in different countries. Politicizing of the problem, maybe the most problematic and challenging points. Psychological issues, we deal with demagogue people, with personal characteristic, self-affirmation. Sometimes when in my auditorium I provide lectures, etc., among physicians, etc., I can find such information too. Self-affirmation, they want to self-affirm, and they may become demagogue and say, and it's difficult to all persuade them to change their attitude toward this problem. Psychological issues, as a role of medical workers, surely don't feel confident to recommend new vaccine against COVID-19, either HPV or other vaccines. Advise parents not to vaccinate their children, or it's important the role of alternative medicine representatives. Unfortunately, like homeopathy, osteopathy, different people who deal with other alternative, not academic medical directions. Usually they have their own negative, I think, role. I just bring some examples. There are innumerable. We can make many parallels. For example, anesthesia-associated death, 8.2 per 1 million hospital discharges, for example. Or another direction, approximately 1.35 million people die each year as a result of road traffic crashes. I always say in my audio, what we have to do? Not to drive, not to take the anesthesia? Surely no. But we can see the vaccinations adverse event adverse event following vaccinations. There is no making comparisons. They are very rare, but they try to fix on this and start to distribute this information. There is no even comparisons, but we have to do. We continue our work. What kind of actions we have to do? First of all, don't give up, surely. Work together with all stakeholders, thinking and acting in the same way. They are maybe over the time become rare, but we have to find them. We have to continuously, permanently work with them. Personal direct communications with healthcare providers to restore, because it's very easy to destroy authority, but it's very difficult and hard to restore this authority of vaccination. Continue to educate all interested sides, parents, teenagers, teachers, adults, academicians, healthcare workers, everybody as much as possible. Search of other advocative activities, as involving religious authorities. There is psychological, philosophical approaches. There are a lot of very rare, but there are a lot of interesting works regarding epistemological approaches, how to combine all the psychological, philosophical, try to persuade, to teach, to elucidate the people regarding vaccination and positive effects of vaccination. And surely transparency in vaccine manufacturing process. Usually, previously, as we can observe, there are maybe some narrow specialists were engaged, immunologists, epidemiologists, pediatricians, etc., virologists in these processes. But now we can see that regarding COVID-19 vaccine, there are a lot of, every day we wait, and population wait, and non-specialists also wait, physicians wait, they wait the new information, which are mostly published in different authoritative journals, etc. And everything must be transparent, everything, all phases, all figures, all biostatistical calculations. And I think this is currently, because this platform that we used, which leads to the very short period of time of creation and manufacturing of vaccination, it requires very high level of transparency. And I want to finish up also my presentation with the same poem. And what is all human life if not the fun or foolishness? Therefore, peace for the world, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I think what you've said is honestly extremely important, because even if we look past the current struggles against COVID, and even perhaps past medical science as well, I think it's safe to say that currently we are dealing with a certain crisis of faith, of trust in the scientific expertise, because we've got, of course, the anti-vaxxers movement, but we've also seen a resurgence of flat earth movement of all. We've got the 5G mask, we've got the chemtrails, we've got all these theories that would seem fringe, but have pretty much entered the mainstream, especially given how the algorithms of the social media are working to essentially promote those sensationalist theories. I think that's the best way to describe them. And should the academic community as a whole really recognize this crisis of trust and take some action against it?
Criteria, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you think would be the way to basically regain trustworthiness as an academia in a greater sense, despite not really doing much wrong?
I think we come together, all academicians, all scientists who mostly engage, because, you know, being as a just physician, for example, it doesn't mean that you are completely, for example, engaged and understand vaccination, immunization issues. Mm-hmm. It's prerogative, it's for very narrow specialists. And sometimes we can see for Facebook, in other social media, opinions, even different physicians. I'm not speaking about non-physicians. There are a lot of too who spread this misinformation. But immunization, very sensitive, which I said very easy to destroy, but very difficult to restore. It means all we have to come together based on this transparency, provide continuous, permanent, endless educational activities to explain people the importance of vaccination, the transparency, how it has been vaccinated, starting from the, animal models up to the manufacturing issues, peculiarities, to explain and persuade them and overcome this situation. The good example of that, the episode of 1998, when Andrew Wakefield spread the misinformation about connection between autism and MMR vaccine. Still, we have problems with that. Still, people think about autism and this connection. It takes very easy, just rumor. It's enough, just based on, as I said, the spatial will and mentality, what they want to listen, they take, absorb, they don't understand. Parents, etc. They don't understand biostatistics. They don't understand science, these peculiarities. Any rumor, it's enough to escape, or at the best scenario, to postpone for the best time the vaccination. Therefore, we have to come together, but on different platforms from different countries, having this authoritative and scientifically proved information and explain that.
Well, thank you, Professor, a lot for this very important warning. And now we'll get back to the more pharmaceutical part of our topic with our next guest, Alessandro Marcello of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, who will tell us about repurposing existing antiviral drugs for COVID-19. Welcome, Professor Marcello.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And congratulations for this nice initiative. Can you see my slides?
Okay. Yes, it's a little cut on the left side.
Cut on the left side. Maybe this way is better. Let me see. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah, it works fine now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thank you for this kind invitation. I'm a part of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, which is an international organization which is meant to provide a center of excellence for research, training, and technology transfer in the field of biotechnology and to promote sustainable global development. We have around 60 member states worldwide and headquarters here in Trieste in Italy, a big lab in Delhi, in India, in China, and Cape Town as well. And we coordinate a network of research groups on different topics of research, including infectious diseases. And clearly, as soon as we were aware of the COVID-19 epidemics, we started programs devoted to provide diagnostics as well as sequencing facilities for our member states. And we're trying to develop protocols for low-cost, affordable diagnostic settings and therapeutic approaches. Concerning antiviral therapy, as you may know, currently there are no specific drugs directed against SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus responsible for COVID-19. However, there are some antivirals that are being used in the clinics. They are still undergoing trial for their use, but they are used currently. And these include compounds like, for example, remdesivir, which is a drug that has been developed for other viruses and have been repurposed to be used for coronavirus. But also chloroquine, although its function may be controversial, still is a drug that is an antimalaric drug repurposed for the use on coronavirus. So this means that the current drugs that are available for treatment are all repurposing drugs. So drugs that were originally developed for a different disease and now have been repurposed for this particular disease. So this is really an emergency response to a new infection, an emerging new infection, where the only weapons available are those that have been produced for other diseases. Of course, these will not be specific for the virus. Probably they will have targets in the cell life cycle rather than on the virus, although some of them are active on the virus, and are incredibly important as a first line of defense against emerging new infections. Now, there are general approaches to find antivirals and also repurposing of drugs. And I try to distinguish between top-down approaches that are basically screening of drugs, which could be FDA registered drugs or drugs for repurposing, which have been already tested for other diseases, like other viral diseases, or maybe traditional medicine, herbal extracts, or other natural compounds that can have antiviral properties. These screenings basically look for the drug on an in vitro viral replication assay, but don't have an idea of the target, which could be, as I mentioned before, cellular or viral in the virus life cycle. Bottom-up approaches instead look for the life cycle of the virus by usually nowadays omics approaches. So they may have loss of function studies that involve screening with CRISPR or RNAi approaches. We can have gain of function studies with overexpression of different proteins, as well as kinome or proteome, other kind of proteome approaches. All these are meant to find the target. So what is the target that could lead to an inhibition of viral replication, but usually lack a drug associated with the target. Although, particularly during this epidemic, now we are starting to have programs where the screenings, as mentioned before, these omics screenings are linked to libraries of drugs and specific targets. So these two approaches can be merged in a single approach. But as soon as the epidemic started, as an institute, we were dealing with very basic, important aspects. So how to get the virus, because the virus, you need the virus to do any kind of antiviral screening. And we isolated the virus from patients on BROE6 cells. So these are classical method for virus isolation. And then, of course, you need an environment. So a BSLT, so a biosafety level 3 laboratory for manipulating this pathogen, as well as an assay to measure loss of infectivity of the virus in the presence of a putative antiviral. And the assay initially is, as shown here, is a plaque assay, which is a very standard virological assay for detecting inhibitors of viral infection. And also we have now developed more high throughput assays based on fluorescence on automated platform. So when we have this assay, then we can really get into antiviral screenings, and we screened a number of different antivirals, both repurposed, so both drugs that have been developed for other diseases, as well as new drugs. And I don't have time to go through all these compounds. One of them, actually a herbal extract that has been developed in collaboration with Sun Pharma, which is an Indian company, is an Indian pharmaceutical company, is currently in phase 3 clinical trial in India. So clinical trial on efficacy on COVID moderate patients. So we are looking forward to the results of this clinical trial. The only example I want to make here is that this other drug, this is an interesting drug which is derived from cholesterol. This is a physiological compound, so it's actually produced in our body, has different function in our body. It's a derivative, it's a metabolite of cholesterol, so it's physiologic. It's called 25-hydroxycholesterol and 27-hydroxycholesterol. And it's found in several tissues and organs. And what's interesting is that it's actually the concentration of this compound, physiological compound, decreases in the course of COVID. So COVID severe patient may have lower level of this 27-oxysterol. And when we use this compound to inhibit SARS-CoV-2, we got a very good IC50, which is the inhibitory concentration around 2 nanomolar, a good selective index, making this a potential drug for the treatment of COVID patient, as well as a first-line drug for several coronaviruses, because we also tested this drug for the common cold coronavirus OC43. And again, we have a good inhibitory concentration. So this means that this kind of drugs can be part of a first-line defense against any emerging viral pathogen. So to conclude, my lab completely turned its focus in the last 7 months or so, and it's important to correlate both basic virus research on MESI mechanism to develop diagnosis and surveillance tools, as well as to look into mechanisms of action of drugs to fight new emerging diseases. And with this, I thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Professor. And now it's time for us to meet our next speaker.
Okay. I think okay.
Which I believe might be Professor Ralph Barrick, though I'm not sure if we're getting to that just yet or in a couple minutes. I should speak my mind because Professor Barrick was initially scheduled for the third group that will begin at about 3 p.m. Warsaw time, but we ended up moving him to the current group. So we're just not sure if we'll talk to him immediately or further down the line after several other presentations. Yes, because currently we're back on initial schedule with Professor SMpaul Khurana, the director of the Amity Institute of Biotechnology in India. Professor Khurana is an internationally recognized virologist, pathologist, and biotechnologist with over 50 years of scientific experience. And he's here to talk about some of it and the Indian experience with herbal remedies in helping to stem the tide of COVID infections. Welcome, Professor Khurana.
Thank you very much, and I am proud to be here at this moment on your insistence. My title of the talk is Indian Experiences in Preventing SARS viruses and COVID by Herbal Treatment for Boosting Immunity. This is all based on indigenous traditional knowledge, and the foremost is the turmeric tea. And turmeric tea is very simple and easy to prepare. You take 3 to 5 gram turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper to make better bioavailability, a small amount of cardamom powder in the boiling water, keep it covered, simmering on heat for 3 to 5 minutes, let it cool down, say when it becomes drinkable. Another common alternative is that you can use the turmeric powder with a bit of coriander or mint leaves and a spoon of honey as you feel like tasting. And it's much easier, and you can have it twice a day, and it really works very much for any kind of fever. It's not only the COVID. The other immunity boosters are also used as below: the black pepper, the long pepper, the dry ginger, ashwagandha, the Indian ginseng or Vithania. And if you are not having these, then you can go for a much simpler preparation, that is tal palm, we call it. It is the date palm, or it's a candy. It's called mishri in India. And cinnamon powder, cardamom powder, and some jaggery. Jaggery is very effective in sweetening, and it also gives you immunity. The other alternative is allspice leaf, bay leaf, cinnamon leaf, jaggery, and small cardamom. There you can see the powder makes a similar tea but has equal effect. Then we also have another alternative, the orange rind. The tender turmeric can be used, The lal mishri is again, it's a red crystal sugar. It's not the sugar from the sugar mills. It is indigenously made by our villager artisans wherever the sugar cane is grown. So it is equally effective and is very good because of the orange rind that gives you a lot of vitamin C, which combines with the tender turmeric and is sweetened by the lal mishri or the red crystal sugar. We also use in many areas the palm jaggery, the dry ginger powder, the black pepper, and or you can alternately use the Indian holy basil with some cardamom and lal mishri. And these all kinds of teas are very easy to make. Say, I myself make it in the morning, and you can have any of these teas, but I prefer number one, the turmeric tea. And then here you can go for basil and cardamom powder and lal mishri. And you, if you want 1 cup for yourself, you can take 250 to 300 ml water, bring it to boil, and let it simmer for 5 to 7, 10 minutes and cool down to moderate warm. We also have a proprietary item available in the Indian market. It's known as Sar Jar Har. That means this is one mixture available in sachet that can combat all kinds of fevers. It's a much elaborate mixture of many drugs, and this is a proprietary item. We also use it, and it has been found to be very effective. And for a packet, you can make 6 cups of tea, and 6 cup means first 3 days twice a day, and next 5 days or 6 days once a day. And this really works and has worked in many areas, particularly deep south, where COVID was very serious and severe. We also recommend using only the seasonal fruits, whatever they may be available: mango, oranges, guava, papaya, pineapple, plums, apricot, pear, apples. Cold storage fruits do not increase the immunity so much, and they are also rather expensive for a common person. As you know, in India, we are vegetarians, and most of our vegetable consumption is of our daily diet with the curry and chapati or the bread. And number one immunity boosting is vegetable is lady finger. All kinds of gourds are really immunity boosting. Drumstick fruits, the fruits are very effective, but even the leaves can be used when the fruits are not available. The colocasia rhizome is equally effective. Be generous with the curry leaf, and that can really help you make the tea taste better and make you quickly relieved. For one more thing, very simple, for sound sleep and boosting immunity, either you go for massage of the foot soles at night before retiring. You can use any edible oil, say mustard, coconut, olive, sesame, and so on. And then you can do it yourself singly, personally, or somebody can help you, and it works. It gives you sound sleep for 6 to 8 hours without any problem. The last, in case of sore throat, which is very common to start with all kind of throat problems, URC, and so on. The If you have a throat which is sore or dripping nose, instead of gargling, better inhale steam for 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day for 3 to 5 days. And thank you very much. Should there be any question, please feel free.
I have one question actually. When you've mentioned the turmeric tea is your favorite of these remedies, was that because of the medicinal effect or your
Most
taste
of them have
preference?
turmeric.
Yeah. When you
What
said
is that?
out of these herbal remedies, your preference is for the turmeric tea, was it because of the medicinal aspects or simply the taste that you like?
No, it is the medicinal aspect. It's highly immunity boosting. So it works in all kinds of fevers. It works on your skin. It works for your digestion. It gives you better sleep and also improves many other functions, metabolism of the body.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Yes, and so we will be meeting our next guest. Oh, as I've mentioned just before this presentation, we are about to connect with Mr. Ralph Barrick earlier in this group, and we're trying to establish that call right as we speak. So please just bear with us for a minute or two, and I guarantee it will be worth it. Maybe I'll take the time to introduce Mr. Ralph Barrick, should he even need an introduction. Distinguished professor in the Department of Epidemiology and a professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Gillings School of Global Public Health in USA. Professor Barrick has spent past 3 decades as a pretty much world leader in the study of coronaviruses, which, as you might guess, can prove rather useful in our current situation. And more importantly, currently, right as we speak, he has a possible drug for the coronavirus in clinical trials. So we will be really interested to pick his mind about that and hopefully learn a bit about it. The meet with Mr. Barrick will not take the form of a presentation as we've seen with most of our guests, but rather it will be a short question and answer panel. Unless, of course, Professor Barrick chooses to surprise us with something that's been on his own mind. However, I'm getting a report that we've almost got a stable connection, but some technical issues occurred. So please bear with us as we take a minute to make sure to make it a smooth and audible connection. Please excuse us. The technical issue is being resolved as we speak. It just might take a minute or two longer. Well, the technical problem is still persisting, but fear not, we've made sure to never let these delays cost us any of the presentations. We might shorten the breaks between the particular groups, like we've already did after group 1. We might shorten or cut the question and answer panel if necessary, but no matter what, all of the guests that manage to connect with us will have their time in the spotlight, however long that will mean we'll be staying here. I do believe the nature of the issue at hand is less of the quality of the connection audio-video stream itself, but rather some problems with Professor Barik connecting to the Zoom. As should be familiar to anyone forced to use this tool in their academic or other professional work. We're sorry for this taking a while, but much like a certain case that occurred in the first of our groups, it appears to be a problem with one of the devices being less compatible with the Zoom technology we are using. So regrettably, just switching the input device simply takes time to physically take it, launch it, and so on. Oh, I believe we're getting some progress on that. So stay tuned, don't go away. Or if you went to grab a tea, please come back soon, because we might just be starting the conversation with Professor Barik any minute now. However, perhaps it will be smarter to use this opportunity to mention for the rest of our speakers to come that it's one of the reasons we try to connect with you a few minutes before your planned presentation, just to possibly avoid or manage such occurrences. So even if it's a little boring to stay on the line for 10 minutes, please, it will be worth it to avoid possible problems, because you never know. It might have worked yesterday, it might have worked in the morning, but things change. I believe we have Professor Barik on the phone, just not in a way that allows us to do a video stream just yet. Still, in a way that will hopefully let us resolve this hiccup. I believe there's another attempt being made right now by our technical staff to reach a stable connection. Still, we really hope to get Mr. Barik online right now, and before we'll be forced to skip to the next speaker. And even if we do, rest assured we will still try to get Mr. Barik further down the line. And indeed, for the time being, to cut on the waiting, we will be talking to Professor Andreas Nitsche from Germany, Professor of Virology at the Humboldt University in Berlin, and also head of the Highly Pathogenic Viruses Division at the Robert Koch Institute in Berlin. He will be talking to us about what can we do to improve our diagnostics of COVID infections. Professor Nitsche, can you hear us? Well, I am being notified by our technical staff that we can in fact hear Professor Nitsche, but we cannot see him. It's a purely video-based problem, so we really hope to get the full package, especially given any possible physical presentation Professor Nitsche might have, but in the worst case scenario, we'll still be able to talk with him. Well, the troubles come in pairs, it seems. We will try to get a video feed to Professor Nitsche in the background, but in the meantime, we'll go forward and talk with Professor SMpaul Gonzalez, a French virologist and professor at the Department of Microbiology and Immunology of Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it seems we've reached Professor Nitsche after all. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
And please go ahead with your presentation. We might not be able to see your face, but thankfully, at least we can see your presentation.
Okay, so my presentation is about the improvement of SARS-CoV-2 diagnostics. I'm going to talk about molecular diagnostics. So if you see on my second slide, the pillars of diagnostic approaches, we have the genome detection, which is quite popular all over the world. Meanwhile, by PCR, we are discussing a lot now antigen detection, virus propagation, and cell culture. And beside this, we have indirect diagnostic approaches targeting antibodies. I'm going to talk about genome detection by PCR today, and just want to raise some issues that might be relevant for reliable diagnostics. So today we have more than 100 commercially available kits for the detection of SARS-CoV-2 all over the world. In addition, we have hundreds of in-house real-time PCR tests that are sometimes published. And considering which test to use, we have different criteria. For example, the specificity of the assays, the sensitivity, just shown by this probit analysis, the reproducibility, and quite important in these days, the availability, which is beside the pure costs of a kit, one of the major issues today, because a lot of companies are not able to produce reagents in time in big amounts. And therefore, I want to show you just what we were considering when we started diagnostics for SARS-CoV-2. The specificity is a major issue. So with the rising number of sequences, and we have now 10,000s of genomic sequences of SARS-CoV-2 in public databases, you can adjust your assay design in a way that you're detecting SARS-CoV-2 only, which is quite difficult to separate it from SARS-CoV-1 or SARS-1, but it's possible. And what we do is a regular in silico monitoring. So 2 times a week, we are validating the oligonucleotides used for diagnostics in comparison to new upcoming sequences to be sure that we would cover all the sequences representing viruses circulating all over the world. Then you do, like you always do, a kind of practical validation with other viruses, and which has become a quite good approach is to target more than one genomic region of the virus, giving you a better reliability and a kind of way to compare results that cannot be interpreted easily. And in addition to this SARS-related assays, it's very helpful to have controls. One control is like an extraction control, for example, something you add to the sample before you extract it. And this is something you have to find in a certain amount. If so, you can be sure that you don't have inhibition in your PCR reaction and that you don't generate false negatives. And a second control, which is used, unfortunately, not that often, also not in commercially available kits that often, is just detecting cellular nucleic acid to be sure that you are sampling correctly. So if you don't find cellular nucleic acids in your sample, you cannot give a negative result reliably because you cannot be sure that there has been something added to the swab and nucleic acid was present in the sample. So, oops, sorry. So this is just one schematic drawing of the approach you could consider. You have the sample, you add, for example, virus-like particles, which is the inhibition control, you extract, and then you can detect either SARS-CoV-2, the control, or the nucleic acid control. We are using this in a kind of duplicate-like PCR, so we are saving sample material by running one duplex PCR together with one one viral gene, the E gene, together with the inhibition control, and the other one is one other gene of the genome of 1AB, together with a nucleic acid control. And since we use it as duplicate, we have a kind of confirmation from one assay to the other, and we save sample material, which is good for high throughput. Just to give you an impression of the first 4,000 samples of nasal and oropharyngeal specimens we were analyzing, we had in our collection about 12% positive samples. Interestingly, we had 2.5% that were nucleic acid positive. Of these 2.5%, 0.3% have been SARS positive. So then it's normal that the duplex PCR is sometimes not popping up, but at least we have about 2% in these samples that haven't been sampled correctly. So these samples were not able to give a positive result, even if virus would have been present. And what is also very interesting, and which is a difference to other sample materials, comparing, for example, urine or sometimes blood with people under treatment, we have only a very low amount of samples that suffer from PCR inhibition. The PCR CT values we obtained were in a range of 15 and 43, which is a quite broad spectrum. And interestingly, the nucleic acid amount varied by the factor of 1,000. So you see that sampling with swabs in the nose and in the throat can end up with completely different amounts of nucleic acids you put into your PCR. And even more important is the question how to quantify. As all of you know, we have now a lot of discussions which virus load might be connected to infectivity of patients, for example. In cell culture, we can try to prove this. But how do you quantify material that was taken by a swab? So you have no volume as reference. You have usually no reference genes for quantitative PCR. So this is still and will be in future also a question what the right quantification measure will be. The future developments we have to look at is multiplex PCRs that cover different targets of the SARS-CoV-2 gene, but that can also, for example, target other differential diagnostically important viruses like influenza, rhinoviruses, adenovirus, whatever. We are discussing to use multi-probe PCRs. This means you are using more than one Tuchman probe and one PCR reaction. This gives you a higher reliability regarding mismatches occurring in new upcoming strains that may lead to failure of proper probe binding in some assays. And for example, we are discussing more and more in the scientific community the use of next generation sequencing, rapid and easy approaches like AmpliSec, for example, based on MinION technology from Oxford Nanopore that could be used to generate full genome sequences of SARS-CoV-2, but also with certain approaches, a kind of multiplex overview about several respiratory viruses or pathogens. And this could be run in less than 3 or 4 hours. And as far as I heard, I had only 6 minutes. So I would like to acknowledge my colleagues, Janine Michel, she's responsible for the whole diagnostics and RKI, other colleagues like Marika, Marcos, and Eva that contributed a lot to our PCR developments, the colleagues of my whole department and everyone supporting SARS-CoV-2 diagnostics in the RKI in these days. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Nitsche.
That's it?
Yes, I believe we will be now connecting to the next guest. And just as mentioned right before, we discovered we can gain a connection with Professor Nitsche. After all, now we'll be talking to Professor SMpaul Gonzalez from the Georgetown University. Welcome, Professor Gonzalez.
Welcome. Thank you.
Please, begin whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to talk about One Health. So how COVID-19 pandemic fits into One Health integrative approach and providing solution. So this is a matter of health logic, policy, and economic relationship. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy and glad to participate to this type of conference because this is a very unique time, I think, in our century to really move on and bring this idea of this interdisciplinary approach of the risk, of the pandemic risk. So as nicely, clearly expressed by World Health Organization and others, One Health is an approach to design and implement programs, policies, legislation, and research in which multiple sectors communicate and work together to achieve what? A better public health. So this is a principle. You know, this talking about programs, policy, legislation, health, all working for the own unique objectives of better public health. This ongoing pandemic of COVID-19 today is not new. The roots and history are already known for years and for centuries, and many other preceded, like smallpox, syphilis, are ongoing, like AIDS, polio. Don't remember, we are still in this pandemic of AIDS and polio these days. Order seems to be shrinking or threatening everywhere without warning, like a Nipah virus encephalitis from one place to another one, and it's still circulating in 2 different continents. Other viruses finally expand, like a Rift Valley fever, crossing the borders of the country and emerge, hopefully emerge like this new coronavirus. As always, histories explain the future of our humanity. To those who want to listen to it, it is clearly established that during our evolution, disease have gone from outbreak to epidemic, from national to regional, from continental to pandemic. All these extensions are essentially linked to the expansion of mankind and its mobility, which is a major factor these days, which began thousands of years ago, which we're now growing and preparing the ground for a future pandemic or global epidemic, I will say. It is essential to observe and learn from the past epidemic, and we are learning a lot. Until recently, Ebola disease showed us that after more than a third of the century, 20 emerging events of the virus, it took 21st emergence of this virus in West Africa in 2014, and some fear of the pandemic with Ebola in Houston, Texas, and elsewhere, for economic and politics finally engaged a vaccine development. The vaccine was already invented and dormant for years in the freezers, was just waiting for such type of fundings from the policy and the economy. So 4 years later, not immediately, 4 years later of these findings, despite disoriented society, political unrest, border risk, the vaccine was finally doing its job and was funded in the heart of Africa between the Republic Democratic of Congo and Uganda. It took a third of a century to prepare to make available an existing vaccine. So this slide here, it's a very simple drawing, human, animals, and environment. But what we are going now, it's more complex and more integrative approach of the science and the epidemic risk. The COVID-19 emergence reminds us of zoonotic risk. The preparation need to be protect ourselves, need to allocate health crisis financing. You see how we are interacting between health and between finance immediately to maintain efficient health system, to educate the people to accept immunization campaign, very important, social science, to have a logical health policy in the medium and long term. Health policy, make a perspective. We don't want to intervene when the outbreak is there, when the pandemic is already installed. As is feasible, but not other politics and profit has been still imposed. So that's it. This is feasible. This was feasible, but it's not done before this pandemic. Once again, it was necessary to take hold, thanks to the World Health Organization for its global health alert, for the state to react and recognizing their powerlessness to turn to science for solutions that already existed. Make a very important statement. For most of the part, quarantine, isolation, distancing, we know that for centuries. This is not new. For that, and then needed some finances without delay, therapy and vaccination, obviously. So this is things we know for years and years and years. We know how to do that, but we have to put our force, our knowledge together. We have learned so much since Hippocrates, Louis Pasteur, Bernard Koch, etc. Yellow fever continues to circulate, and I know somebody is listening to me, to circulate in Africa, despite the vaccine of remarkable efficacy and cheap vaccine, and a perfect understanding of the natural circulation of the virus for more than a century. Yellow fever is still there. Why? Big question. I have the answer.
Excuse me,
One else.
Professor,
Yeah?
I just wanted to point out, we still have some time, but we're nearing the
I'm
end.
done.
Oh, well.
Give me 5 minutes and I'm good. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We have learned so much. So it's time to put out together the good of all. And that's when One Health becomes a strategy of choice that has already proven itself. It's not new, One Health. When most of the infectious diseases are known to be zoonotic origin, the science of humans and animal health intervene to understand and resolve the expected health challenge to the given environment. So and at the end, my slide is not working properly. And this is where we are now. You see on the top, this is transdisciplinary approach, and this is transsectional approach and working together. So science in the 21st century, us scientists in the 21st century, we must engage on the multidisciplinary approach. This is essential. No more silos between science, life science, for health, medical science, public and veterinary health, and human social science, environmental science. And those who have by the past very little to use this transdisciplinary approach, political and social science, they must to integrate the large scientific and medical science, must take heart this emerging health issue when it will continue to emerge. This is emergent, it is a fatal fact. Charles Nichols, Nobel Prize of Medicine, said in The Student in 1933, such work is well advanced, it's fatal. Emerging disease will emerge and continue to emerge. Moreover, in order to respond, armed with the solution, provide a transdisciplinary way to science, politics must adopt a multi-sectoral practical approach here, informed, coordinated locally, globally, when necessary by the World Health Organization, by the World Organization of Animal Health, and other agencies, the response is guaranteed to victory. As always, all pandemics have progressed, remember that, but at the cost. But this time, with the direction of One Health, it will be at lower cost for life and deferred profit. Always remember, only one infect millions. This is a fact. Let's think about One Health, one world, and work the well-being of all with the mean of strategy we have learned for decades. So this is my conclusion. One world, one health, and using all our knowledge, giving this all knowledge to the politics, and we have to make sure that the politics are listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Professor, for your message. And as a conference, we'll be moving on to our next guest, which and it will be Professor Poleroy from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. We don't really have time to list all of her achievements, so just bear in mind she's a recipient of the Order of the British Empire for her many, many achievements in viral research. Welcome, Professor Roy.
Thank you. I am from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and I will today discuss about do multivalent COVID virus-like particle offer improved diagnostic performance. I'm a professor there, and I work with COVID also. So the outbreak of COVID-19 has made a devastating impact globally, as we all know. The diagnostics tests are an essential part, just like vaccines, of the infection control. So diagnostic can be focused on the present virus infection or past infection. So, however, any test must be very rapid and accurate, and also must be very robust and reliable. That is the essence of it. So diagnostics relate to controlling the virus spread and to limit the peak of the epidemic. So it is an essential part for any infectious disease. The virus, most of you know, it has a different component in the virus. And the most importantly, inside is the RNA genome. So the current testing, the infection, is based on the RNA to detect the infection and early infection. But also, if one wants to do the large-scale survey to identify the population, large population, who are already infected and recovered or vaccinated when the vaccine developed, then the antibody-based testing is essential. And that is generally serological tests based on these spike protein or S protein that we call, which make the crown of the virus. So that's most because they're highly immunogenic. This is the candidate for vaccine as well as for immunogenic serological test. So how to design a perfect how to design a perfect, a perfect antigen antibody detection. The protein required for antibody detection, such as S, can be made by recombinant technology, and this is the one next crown of the virus. So this protein, which is responsible for detecting the antibody, can be made alone, that is singly, but it will not form the crown. The problem is that if you make it alone, it doesn't form the crown, and so which is essential for enhanced accuracy and sensitivity. However, fortunately, multiple S protein or crown-like structure can be made or can be displayed by virus-like particle, as shown here in this slide. These VLPs lack the viral RNA, so they are very safe and non-infectious. However, they mimic the virus structure, as you can see here. All the components are there except the inside bit. So this is our idea to make a perfect vaccine, perfect diagnostic tools. So we can make virus-like particle taking all the component, and that means it will have the framework to make the crown on the outside, which is spikes. So 3 proteins, spike, envelope, and membrane protein will express recombinantly and will display the spike, exactly like the viral crown, but this is empty, as you can see. Or you can make synthetically, which doesn't have all the component, but it still can display the crown as a trimeric form. They're perfect, like same, there's both type of virus articles are perfect for displaying the crown. So this can be used in an ELISA test, which is immunological ELISA test to detect the antibody from the serum of the infected individual. So both types are excellent candidates for the development of highly sensitive diagnostic assays to detect COVID-19 antibodies, not only infected, but also vaccinated human serum. We have done some work with that already. We made the 2 types of VLPs, and we show that if we take the preliminary data shows that we take the single S protein that most diagnostic serum-based antibody test is on this, the single protein, which is the problem, I feel, or the VLP as a diagnostic, and you can see the sensitivity between these 2 is remarkable. Very high reactivity, and you can see it's very low on that same amount of serum we use. And we have 4 positive here, 4 positive serum and 2 negative serum. There is no false net positive here. So it is a very powerful technique, and I believe very strongly that we need vaccine making, but we also need very good diagnostic antigens for quick controlling of the virus spread. So if you have any question, I'll be very happy to answer.
Well, the real question is whether we have the time to ask questions, but I'll ask a simple one. Actually, it's maybe a bit more general in nature, but
yes.
well, not less important. Given our time with coronavirus was really short, we really haven't that much time to study it. And as we speak, we're going into autumn, which is classically the flu season, and we all expect another spike of infections. Do you think that we as global community already have enough experience to handle such a spike, to be better prepared than we were in the spring?
Yes, I think so, because there are large community people are working, large community of virologists, immunologists, epidemiologists, all are working. And it's a very fast progress happening, really, for any other virus ever happen. So I'm absolutely sure, yes, we have no problem to understand more and more, deeper, very fast. We know a lot already. We know a lot from the previous coronavirus, MERS and SARS, but this one a little bit different. And I think we are learning very fast, particularly in aspect of the virology part and immunology and epidemiology, of course. So I think, yes, we will have a lot of chance to control this virus.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
And now we will be meeting our next guest, Professor Niranjan Nayak from the Manipal College of Medical Sciences and Manipal Teaching Hospital in Nepal. And we will hear a presentation about the most recent updates on pathogenesis of COVID-19. Welcome, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So I am going to speak on pathogenesis of COVID-19. Now, as we all know, human coronaviruses were known inconsequentially to cause common cold in healthy individuals. But unfortunately, the 21st century saw emergence of few highly pathogenic coronaviruses. One was SARS coronavirus, second was MERS coronavirus or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, and the latest one was COVID-19 virus. And this COVID-19 virus has caused a pandemic which is still spreading very rapidly throughout the globe. Now, a little bit about the virology. This is an RNA virus, spherical, pleomorphic, enveloped virus, and on the envelope it carries club-shaped peplomers or spike proteins which are responsible for attachment to the host cell. In spite of knowledge on the virus, still we do not know many things about the virus pathogenicity. Now, this virus, when it infects, its incubation period varies from 1 to 14 days. Median incubation period may be 5 to 6 days. The most important features are fever, dry cough, fatigue, joint pain, and others are constitutional symptoms similarly as seen in many other viral infections. However, because of the high infectivity of the virus, I must stress it at this point of time, because of high infectivity of the virus, lack of antiviral drugs to treat the virus infection, and lack of vaccine, as well as many presence of innumerable asymptomatic cases. The problem is there always in the management of the cases, which is extremely challenging. Now, that is why it is needless to emphasize that in spite of the knowledge about the virus and its genome and other ingredients in its transmissibility, still we have to know the details how it causes the disease. So the pathogenesis is very, very important in order to enlighten the optimal management of cases of this growing epidemic. So initially, I must say that this is the respiratory virus like any other respiratory virus. It spreads through droplets. The droplets, when they are excreted from the secretions from the mouth or the throat, they remain in the environment in the form of droplets or droplet nuclei. So direct spread and indirect spread via fomites is always possible. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, the virus has spike glycoproteins, which are adhesins for the host epithelial cells. And the most important receptor in the respiratory epithelium is angiotensin converting enzyme 2. This angiotensin converting enzyme 2, this is mainly responsible to convert angiotensin 2 to angiotensin 1, which is a potent vasoconstrictor. And this receptor has been hijacked by COVID-19 virus, and this virus uses these ACE2 receptors for its attachment. ACE2 receptors are abundantly found in the lower respiratory tract, on vascular endothelium, on monocytes, on alveolar macrophages. So you can imagine that this virus gets plenty of opportunity to attach to the lower respiratory tract and cause the disease. So this disease causation is by way of not only that the virus enters into the respiratory cells, and there are evidences that the virus has been isolated from the cells of the respiratory epithelium by means of tissue culture techniques, or even the viral messenger RNA has been detected in the respiratory epithelial cells, yet simply killing the cells or being toxic to the cells, the virus does not end its potential at that point. It also leads to severe inflammatory response, which I must say is one-way inflammatory response. There is no balance between the pro-inflammatory pathway and the anti-inflammatory pathway. I will give a simple example here, that simple case of boil or abscess in which is characterized by inflammatory signs like calor, rubor, tumor, dolor, and punctulesa. These are the 5 cardinal signs of acute inflammation. But these acute inflammation, they remain localized to an area where after some time, the anti-inflammatory response takes over. So there is always a balance between the Th1 response and Th2 response. But due to some reasons, in certain respiratory infections, the best example is acute respiratory distress syndrome. And here is another example is COVID-19. So in these cases, probably due to some reason, there is a phenomenon happening which is known as cytokine storm. So this is a cytokine storm, that is exaggerated, unnecessary exaggerated immune response. So to be very precise, this is heightened or exaggerated Th1 response with production of uncontrolled production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-1 beta, IL-6, interleukin-12, interferon gamma. So all these pro-inflammatory cytokines, they go on increasing in an unchecked manner, thereby producing the pathogenicity. Now, to be precise, this is similar to a phenomenon where graft versus host disease is happening. In graft versus host disease, what is happening? There is an heightened Th1 response. That is because antigen is presented in varied way. One is self-MHC can produce the graft antigen, graft MHC can produce the graft antigen, and graft MHC can produce the self-MHC can produce the graft antigen. So graft antigen is being presented to the T cells in 3 different ways. So this is an example. We can compare this example with the uncontrolled pro-inflammatory response in case of COVID-19 virus infection. This is also another example, that is the influenza virus H5N1, where the antibody response happens against the past cell because of memory cells, presence of memory cells. So these are the few examples of heightened immune response, heightened Th1 response. So that might be happening because till now, nobody is clear about this cytokine storm theory, which is applicable in the pathogenesis of COVID-19. Now, this is again to show you, precisely to show that besides the cytokine storm, there are some hypercoagulable phenomena which is happening here. So this slide shows the course of events, that is the viremic phase, followed by acute pneumonic phase, followed by the recovery phase. In the panel B, that is the lower one, we can see here that this panel shows us that when the patient has been treated with specific immunoglobulin or low molecular weight heparin, then the levels of B cells, levels of T cells, and inflammatory factors, they are greatly reduced, dramatically reduced. And the markers like D-dimer and viral nucleic acid, they are also dramatically reduced. So that shows that the host, when host is immunocompetent rather than immunocompromised or old age patient or patient with comorbidities, this condition will be similar to that shown in the panel A. Whereas if the host is immunocompetent, that will the markers will be similar as shown in panel B. So this is in short about the pathogenesis, their markers, and the mechanism of pro-inflammatory, uncontrolled pro-inflammatory cytokine response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. And we're a bit pressed for time, so now we will go to the last guest of this second working group, Dr. Shailendra K. Saxena, the Deputy Dean of King George Medical University in Lucknow, India, and recipient of numerous international awards, such being a member of the Royal Societies for Biology and Chemistry of Great Britain, or the Translational Medicine Professionals in Austria. Welcome, Dr. Saxena.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really thankful to the Society for giving me this opportunity for giving the work which we are doing with this pandemic coronavirus. And some of the studies which I can share, I would like to do in this next 5 to 6 minutes. As we all know, that this coronavirus, which we are facing currently, is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered novel coronavirus, also known as SARS-CoV-2. And this novel coronavirus is a new coronavirus that has not been previously identified. And the virus causing coronavirus disease 2019, that is COVID-19, is not the same as the coronavirus that commonly circulate among humans and cause the mild illness, like the common cold. So a diagnosis with coronavirus, which we have seen from 1960 onwards in the human beings, like 229E, NL63, OC43, or HKU1, is not the same as the COVID-19 diagnosis. And that is what we are very much worried to understand, that normally the coronaviruses were not causing the infections to the humans, and mostly they were replicating in the animals. So how come these have become so fatal this particular time? And so the patients with the COVID-19 needs a different types of evaluation system and even the management in the hospital system as well as the diagnosis. We know that this coronavirus is basically of 3 types: the type A, type
I'm afraid we
might
might
B, and type C. Then this is mostly found in Wuhan and America and Australia. With just one mutation, this has changed to type B, and that is found most in China and outside of China also, and derived from type A. And with this, there is another one mutation has caused, that is called daughter of type B, and that is the one mutation different from the parent variation, and that's how it has gone to Europe and Singapore. So these are the 3 types, and A2A has been found the most virulent form which has been seen throughout the world. Now, these are some of the pictures which has been the scanning electron microscopy done with this novel coronavirus. Showing a very unique corona-like structure onto the surface, that is like in this, the very unique surface which you are seeing in this particular picture. These are called spike glycoprotein, and that's the attachment. And now we know that 80% of the research throughout the world, either they are diagnostics or whether they are with therapeutics or whether they are with several other things, they are all based upon this spike glycoprotein. So this belongs to a subgenus called Cervicovirus, which is under the beta coronavirus genus and under the Coronaviridae family. The genome is, you can see here in this particular picture, that was designed by us in the month of January itself, and that we had published in Springer Nature. And you can see here, this is the membrane glycoprotein, and then there's a nucleocapsid protein, there's an envelope, there's an RNA, and there's a spike glycoprotein, and that's how the virus looks like. Inside there is an RNA which is inside the nucleocapsid. And the genome is around 26 to 32 kb, which is around, on an average, 30 kb in most of the cases. The first ORF, which is around 67% of the total genome, which is comprising of ORF1A, is encoding for about 16 non-structural proteins. And these NSPs are basically 2 viral cysteine proteases, papain-like proteases like NSP3, chymotrypsin-like proteases, 3C-like, or main proteases like NSP5, RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, NSP12, helicases, and several other transcription and applications of the SARS-CoV-2. So in addition to NSPs, the genome encodes for 4 major structural proteins, including the spike surface glycoprotein, membrane, nucleocapsid protein, and envelope and the accessory proteins like ORF. We still do not know that what is the intermediate host. As we have seen earlier in 2002 and 3, the pangolins were believed to be the intermediate host and the bats were the natural host. In MERS-CoV, we have seen that the intermediate hosts were camels and the bats were again the natural host. This time we know the natural hosts were the bats, but there's so many intermediate hosts have been suggested. As of now, we do not know that which one is the intermediate host for this particular virus. So what we have done, we have initially started in the month of December itself, when we start getting the news from the China that this kind of infection is happening. So we have taken the 2 sequences from Wuhan seafood market pneumonia, and we have compared it with the 2002 and 3 virus. And that's how we have compared these 2 strains. And you can see here the 2009 nCoV, and this is SARS-CoV, which is 2003 virus. They were around 87% same, with around 2% gaps and 1,273 positions have been analyzed. And this is the way, so this is the spike glycoprotein, which was having a receptor binding domain here, which was lying around 270 to 510 position. And this particular was the whole picture of this particular spike glycoprotein around which the whole research is moving around. The importance of the spike glycoprotein is that it helps in the attachment. So that's what we were looking forward, that how this attachment happened, and that event is called N-glycosylation. So where the glycose moiety attaches to the cell membrane. So you can see here, this is the virus that attaches with the host cell membrane with the help of the glycan receptors. So we try to find out what makes the cell to get it better attachment with this particular virus. And then we have analyzed, because the objective was this can help us in making the monoclonal antibodies for the vaccine called glycoepitopes. We can also think of the glycosylation of the viral surface envelope so that we can make the drugs like initially we have given hydroxychloroquine, and then we can think of the lactins and the other things. So that's how we can find out the immunology of the virus. So that's how the response favoring the host antigen presentation and the response favoring the viral attachment and entry. So what we have found that there were several novel epitopes were available in this. You can see here 2019 nCoV, and this table here on the right side is the SARS-CoV, which is 2003 virus. There were the several places, some of the epitopes were missing here, and a couple of the epitopes were new. And based on this, what we have found that that's how if the glycosylation sites are new, that means the previously known attachment sites may not be utilized by the virus. But there were some of the sites which were same also, as you can see here in NNTV, NGTH, and so on. So that also helps us to understand that if we had the vaccines for the previously known strains, that can work at least partly in this particular case. So we try to find out whether there is a difference in the antigenicity. And then what we have found, yes, so you can see here again, this is the left side on the 2019 nCoV, and this is which now we know SARS-CoV-2, and this is the SARS-CoV that is the 2003 virus. And what we have found, there were several epitopes were different, suggesting the different antigenicity. In spite of that, the virus was 87% same from 2003 to 2019. So then we looked about this spike protein in a much more detail, and this was the first structure solved by us, given at the 1.39 angstrom values. And this is one of the most beautiful structure which we believe till date available for the spike glycoprotein that helps us to understanding that how the 2003 spike glycoprotein overlaps with the 2019 glycoprotein. So you can see there are the 2 strands which are overlapping with each other. This we have published in a Stranger Nature Virus Disease on 24th Jan itself. So this is how we understood that how there is a difference between these 2 viruses. And in spite of the difference, there was no structural difference between the 2003 and 2019 virus, and they had a difference in the antigenicity. So collectively, for the first time, we have been able to show that this virus is related to the predecessor SARS-CoV, and that's why we suggested that this name should be changed to SARS-CoV-2, which was later appreciated and taken Not only that, we also have said that the foremost our data provide that the evidence that 2019 nCoV uses the various novel glycosylation sites as SARS-CoV and may have a potential to become pandemic owing its antigenic discrepancy. And further, the demonstration of novel CTL epitopes may impart opportunities for the development of peptide-based vaccine, which later on the China has taken up with the same strategy, and they had recently published a Lancet paper with the same strategy for the prevention of the 2000 nCoV. And additionally, we have shown that similar antigenic sites in both 2019 nCoV and SARS coronavirus suggest the scope of the SARS-associated peptide-based vaccine for the prevention of 2019 nCoV or SARS-CoV-2. So the similarity in the spike glycoprotein structure suggests the use of the coronavirus-specific attachment inhibitors as the current choice of therapy. A couple of those now are available, including hydroxychloroquine in each moment. So we have a 4P strategy that is called plan, prepare, prevent, and protect. Take some time to plan, recruit the vulnerable population around you, in your family and community, schools and universities and childcare, the work, business, and the government, and all this, whether they can be taken care of. And then caring for self and family. So prepare yourself that how you are going to do. Do you know from where to get the medication? Whether the school lockdown and the closing arrangements are there. If you have to drop your children in a crèche, then if there is someone sick, then where you are going to drop. And when you are not well, whether do you have an arrangement for the non-perishable food and water. Prevent. If you know that you have a comorbidity condition, please vaccinate against those diseases for which at least the vaccine is available. Cover your cough, as you can see here. Wash your hands with soap and water again and again. And prevent and manage the chronic diseases and protect by responding to COVID-19 to reduce the risk of exposure, like know the symptoms, know when to see the doctors. You should know that who's the vulnerable population and breastfeed your baby even if you are sick. And as we know that as we educate more and more demos, that means the people, we stop more and more panic. So this is a very important slide which we always say, if you educate the people, the pandemic can be stopped and the panic can also be stopped. And I'm really thankful to all of you, the COVID-19 situation. So you can do the long distance wave, you can do the elbow bump with the two colleagues, the sanitary gloves you can wear if you really want to shake hands, and you can do like this. You can, you can go in front of a professor and two HODs can do this kind of thing. And you have heard these are the two newer species where the infections have been reported. So we have not even able to tackle one, and now there are two more which we know. So we have to be very careful when we are handling these kind of scenarios. The world's first textbook on the coronavirus disease was written and edited by me, that is available here. And the most important thing is that the publisher has agreed to give this book to all the participants of this meeting as a free of cost. So please go online and just put this title, and you can get a Springer link and you can download it, and even you can keep in your library also. The full book is available free of cost. So thank you very much for your time and listening me. And if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer.
Thank you, Professor, a lot for both the presentation and the gracious offer. Though I'm afraid the questions will have to wait, as we've already run a little bit over time, and we will simply end this meeting of the second group and take a short break to reconvene with the next third group of experts at 4 p.m. Central Eastern European time, or in more practical way, in about 45 minutes. However, professors who are scheduled to speak at the next group are of course encouraged to show up a few minutes earlier so you can make sure to resolve any possible technical issues. Thank you and enjoy your break.